Okay, the last month or so I've been busy making shop improvements and working on the 440 motor, and I finally got time to get back on the Trans Am, and this is what I got going on. I got a whole bunch of different abrasives, stripper pads, sanding discs, and I'm gonna get up in here and sand down all my spot welds, clean up all the glue from the old insulation. Got a wire wheel to strip out all the old seam sealer. And once we get everything cleaned up, I'm gonna go ahead and seam seal everything and spray the whole inside with some primer sealer and get it looking really good in here. So we're gonna go ahead and get going on this.
Starting to make a little progress over there. That gooey, tarry stuff that they use for seam sealer is a little tough to get off, but the wire wheel's taking it off. I'm gonna have to use some acetone to clean it up. And also I noticed that the seat belt nut that was in the old floor pan was so rusted away I couldn't really use it. So I made this little metal plate with a big old 1/2-inch nut welded on it to match the other side, and I'm gonna stick it right there. Got a bunch of plug welds. I'm gonna plug weld everything and then run a bead all the way around the perimeter, and I think that'll be plenty strong. So I don't want to have to be welding on that after I get everything painted. So I think when I come in tomorrow, I'll go ahead and start welding this up and get it smoothed out. And that, I think, is the only welding I got left up in here. So gonna come in tomorrow and get the rest of this side cleaned up, all the back, and then it's just gonna be a lot of vacuuming and blowing down, getting all the junk out of here, get it cleaned up, and do a little seam sealing. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day, and I've got my little seatbelt flange all welded in and smoothed out, and I've been scraping away at this tar-like stuff that they use for seam sealer. Probably gonna have to take some acetone and wire wheel it. That's some pretty tough stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get all this glue that they had on there holding the insulation in. It's really thick and crusty. So I'll go ahead and get my little spot welds from the wheel well smoothed out, get all this cleaned up, and we'll be getting closer to getting ready to paint. Starting to get there. Getting all this goo and glue and tar all scraped off and sanded down. Got all the stickiness junk off of there, and some of the factory tack welds didn't hold, so I put a little bead on those, got that held down good. And tomorrow is the weekend, so it's getting a little late today, so with any luck we'll be able to come in this weekend and get this all cleaned up and sealed up. Alright, it's the next day, and Ted was trying to get himself run over while we were moving vehicles around. So I had to put him up in the office. I think we're done moving vehicles, so we can let him go. Ted, get over here. Come on, where are you going? Ted. Okay, we're getting it all wiped down. Let's get ready to seam seal and paint. And I got a helper today. So we're gonna get going with a bunch of prep spray and shop towels. See if we can get all this dust cleared out. Blowing it down, it's sticky dust, so it needs to be wiped. So we're gonna get going on that.
Okay, we got the front firewall all taped off, and now Tim's gonna get ready and take the steering column down.
bolt stuck. Okay. Now we gotta go inside the rest of it. Wrong socket.
Yeah, it would help to get the right side.
Yeah. I was wondering why that didn't work. Come on. Okay. Come on. Alright. Avoid dropping this on my head. It's stuck. Okay. I'm gonna have to get a pry bar.
Hold on, the plug
Okay.
is out. Now we gotta tape that hole. Okay, we're putting some fresh seam sealer in. Getting it ready to paint.
Lobby. Yeah, just spot welds there. It's gonna need some seam sealer. You never have too much seam sealer.
No, gotta keep that sucker sealed.
Okay, after patching off 486 little holes, I think we're ready to spray in there. We got all our seam sealer done, and I'm not an expert seam sealer, but it don't look no worse than the factory, so maybe somebody will think it's the factory. So I think we're just gonna go ahead and mix up some primer sealer and see if we can get this thing sprayed down. It's got some sludge in the bottom.
Ooh, it's lumpy.
Yeah, we can mix it up really good. Okay. Come on.
Yum, yum.
Delicious. Globs.
Paint gloves. He's thinned and smoothed out.
Okay.
It's getting there.
Yeah. Just gotta keep mixing it and the lumps go away.
To get this done, the inside's gonna look really nice.
Yeah.
One solid color.
Okay.
Which kind of primer sealer are you using?
It's called Matrix.
Oh, cool. Okay. Got some fresher hardener in there.
Activator.
That's the activator.
I think it needs a little bit more. It's supposed to be 4 to 1. Whoa.
Don't want to lose the screen. It's a really windy day today.
Yeah, it is. Still kind of lumpy. Congeal, mix together. Okay. I'm gonna need you to hold this. Whoa. Alright.
Test it.
Test pattern.
That's looking good. Yeah, I'm gonna bring it off. There you go. Got that right-handed action going better.
Yeah, it's better.
It works better.
Okay, the camera died while I was painting, but we got it pretty well sprayed down all the interior stuff. Looks a lot better than all the multicolored stuff. So now we can throw our steering column back in here so we can steer it around and start working on all the outside stuff. Cool. Okay, now that we got our interior cleaned up, I'm gonna go ahead and start doing some work on the fenders. If you'd have watched our first video on this, you'd have known that this floor had holes everywhere in it. There was no floor over there. So, we're getting there, slowly but surely. We got all of our floors POR15 underneath and epoxy primer on the top. So we got that all cleaned up. So now we can start moving on to doing a little bit of body work. I got hammer and dolly here because there was some pretty good dents and warps where I had patched my fender here. I had access to it here, got it pretty well hammered out. Still low here, but there's no access because got that framework underneath, but it's pretty close. So I'm gonna fill all this in with fiberglass and then try to straighten it out. Don't know where we're at here, so we got to go ahead and put some guide code on this, see where we need to knock it down and where we need to build it up. So alright, we'll let that dry, see where we're at. Okay, that's where we're at. I got both fenders pretty well blocked out, and I think it's close enough now to where I can put some primer filler on there and block it out some more. So I'm gonna dump a whole bunch of loads of primer filler on there and see how it turns out. Alright, well, I'm waiting for my primer to dry. I figured I need to drill some holes for my fender flares, and I've got some weld through primer, and hopefully these studs will make some marks and we can drill some holes in this, and hopefully I'm not going to make Swiss cheese out of it. If I do, I'm gonna have to fix it, I guess. So we're gonna give this a shot and see if it's gonna work. Okay, I got it to fit, but I broke it. So, I already started the process to fix it. When I patched these, I didn't have a car to put them on, so now it's the shape that it should be, and hopefully it won't break again. So, gonna let that dry, sand that out, and I think it's gonna fit now. Cool. Okay, I'm getting ready to bolt on my fenders. So I wanted to put on my inner fenders first, just a lot easier to put them all together and then put them on. Got a bunch of bolts and new C-clips.
All the auto parts stores have is metrics, but our local hardware store has standard ones in their little section for automotive stuff, so that's cool. Got a whole bunch of those. So I got this one over here ready, and got this one started lining up with a little bit longer bolts, and then we'll put the shorter ones in the correct length and go ahead and get these bolted up. Okay, everything lined up really nicely as expected, using the factory original inner and outer fenders. The aftermarket ones, they never line up. But I got my access hole with inserts in it, and not only will I be able to access the blower motor, but this side gill over here too. I'll be able to reach in there and get the nuts to it. Of course, on the other side it's accessible just reaching down through here because there's no blower motor AC stuff in the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and set these up in the shop, move the car back, and tomorrow I'm gonna see if I can't bolt them on. All right, it's a couple days later, and I went to set my fenders on, and on the passenger side, I realized I cannot fit the blower motor box up in there with the fender on. So, what we've got going on here is we've got the inner box in there, and I've got the outer blower motor box all cleaned up. Had patch a few little cracks. It's fiberglass. Other than that, it's in pretty good shape, but I got it all painted up, cleaned up, and when that dries, we're going to connect the other half to it that lines up all the way over here and covers this up, and there's about 5 screws that will hold that box on there. So once we get that half in there, the other half we can bolt on even with the fender in the way. So gotta wait for a little paint to dry, and I think meanwhile I'm gonna start fitting my other fender, maybe see how the other fender flares fit. Just something to keep busy while I'm waiting for paint to dry. But once we get that box in there, I think we can put the other fender on, start lining everything up. Okay, I got a bunch of bolts and shims rounded up, and I'm going to attempt to get this fender lined up. And it looks like I'm going to need quite a few shims under here. We'll start out with a couple of them. I know when I fitted it before, needed quite a few there. And aligning the fender can be very frustrating, because when you tighten this bolt down and then you tighten this one, it moves this way. Loosen those, tighten these, one up under the door, and you go back and forth for, oh, probably an hour or so. But we'll see how this turns out. And we'll see if we can get our gaps to line up, and looks like we need to come a little forward, and we'll tighten that down. Probably well, a little bit on the low side. We'll try one of these thinner shims, and I need to go in just a little bit, and
grease it up. And that's pretty close. So far, well, our gap is terrible. Okay, needs to go forward. Getting there. Maybe not. Okay. Let's see. I open this door. And come inside. Might be able to shim this one out. But we're gonna have to loosen that one. Okay, about 45 minutes later, I have got this gap pretty acceptable, and we have a little slight bit of unevenness here, but since I welded this patch into this fender, it's a little warped, so not going to take very much, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And our gap is good here, fairly even all the way down. With these F bodies, you can get a nice little 1/8 inch gap here, and then you go to open the door and it jams into the fender. So just by the nature of the design, you gotta have at least a 3/16 gap here. And got these bolts lined up. Still have a lot of the inner fender bolts to put in, but the kicker is, once we get this fender on and the other one, we got to loosen everything up to adjust to the hood. So I didn't want to spend a whole awful lot of time getting it perfect, just in the ballpark. So once our AC box dries up, the paint and stuff, we're gonna go ahead and get that bolted in place, stick the other fender on, then we'll try to fit our hood, see how that lines up. Hopefully we won't have to move these fenders, but I'm pretty sure we will. So I'm gonna come in tomorrow, try to get the other fender on. Okay, we have our outer half of the AC box cleaned up, patched up, and painted, and I've attached the other half to it just to make sure that it's going to be lined up with the inner part. And I've got the inner one temporarily in place just to make sure everything's going to line up. And I also need to run a bead of seam sealer around here. And once we get this screwed in place, we can unbolt this half, take the inner half out, and then we'll be ready to put on our passenger fender. So I'll go ahead and get some seam sealer in here and see if I can get this mounted up. Okay, now that we got this half mounted, we can unscrew this half, take the inside out, and we'll be good to put on our passenger fender. So, gonna get this removed and get it out of
way. Now we can remove the inner one, and we'll be ready to put on our fender. And over. Okay, managed to get that on there without smashing any fingers. Now, maybe we can try to line it up. Okay, let's see if I can get this shimmed up and try to align this fender. Okay, as expected, after a lot of back and forth and up and down and in and out and all directions, we've got a fairly good gap here, and the fender's bolted down, and we even got the nose piece on, and it seems to be lining up fairly decent, even on both sides. A little bit of adjusting here and there, and I think we can get that nose piece bolted down and finish up on all the bodywork. It's going to take a lot of hand sanding and smoothing and maybe a little bit of spot putty in little spots, but I think we're getting close to starting our bodywork here. Once we get the hood on, if it fits, then we're golden. So it's starting to really look like a Trans Am again now. It's looking cool. So I think when I come in tomorrow, might just attempt to put our hood hinges on and see if the hood's gonna fit. Okay, it's about noon the next day, and I have finally got this hood adjusted. It's not perfect, but it's definitely acceptable. And when I first put it on, I thought it was the wrong hood or something. It was so misaligned. But we got the fenders shifted back and forth, hood hinges moved back and forth, and we've got it really good. So I still got to go ahead and get the rest of the bolts into the inner fenders, get those all tightened up, and once I do that, I can start doing some sanding and a little bit of body work. So we're going to go ahead and finish bolting everything up and start doing a little bit of body work. before I start primering and doing the body work, I still gotta strip this paint off. I've been putting it off because that's a lot of paint to strip. But I just gotta go ahead and get it done. After a few hours of paint stripping, I think we've got the last of the original paint all stripped off, all the way down the rear wheel well, and just got a little bit more up in here to clean out. And then after that, I think we can start doing some body work, filling in all of the little defects from welding things together and getting our door gaps even. It's a little bit off there. I think there was probably about 5 pounds of paint on that roof. It must have been at least a 1/16 of an inch thick. So I got some cleaning up to do, and then we'll start doing a little bit of body work. Alright, after a little bit of guide coat and some block sanding, we're getting pretty flat in this area. The door and the fender kind of took a nosedive right where they meet,
And I guess in the factory they don't really care about that. But I want it to be straight across so that it looks a lot better. So gonna put a little spot putty in our low spots and then block it some more and put tons of primer on there and then block the whole door. These are the major areas where I put the quarters on. I got some spot putty here. I need to get some on the other side. Other than that, there's a few little dings in the fenders and one little low spot right here in the roof. But other than that, there's not a lot of body work. It's just any body work is time consuming. So I'm running out of fiberglass and spot putty and whatnot, so I guess I'm gonna have to get some more of that and see if we can get some more of this body work done. Okay, after putting on a bunch of layers and taking them off and putting them on, I think I got it pretty close. So now I'm going to just spray some sandable primer on here, and then all the little defects will for sure show up. So I'm going to spray this on and let it cure overnight. Come in, put some guide coat on and block it out some more. So let's just see if we can get it all one color. Alright, it's the next day and all my primer is dry, so I'm going to go ahead and spray some guide coat on here and see how well we did. Okay, I've got this pretty well blocked out, except for a couple of little shallow spots and tiny little spots here, and I'm sure that some good primer will fill that in, unlike the rattle can that I used yesterday. But it's really flat, and I can run a straight edge down it, and it is flat from the fender to the door. So I think that's going to look a lot better. When you look down the side of the car, you're not going to see it cave in here and here. And especially we're painting the car black, and every little wave or ripple is going to show. So I think that's pretty good for the initial part here, and I can move on to some of the other little dings and dents that I got, and we'll throw a whole bunch of primer over the whole car once I want to get about a gallon of it. And of course we're gonna sand most of it off, but you got to do that when you're blocking it out. Guide coat all over the place. So I think we'll come in tomorrow and start working on other stuff. Okay, now that I got my fender and door all flat and even, I've been working back here where I welded on the quarter, and I was using the Durablock, and I kept sanding away all my filler, and then I realized, yeah, you got to use the flexible type block when you're sanding a curved surface. And I've got it real close, you know, some defects, and there's still a lot of scratch marks and whatnot. So I'm gonna mix up some primer and just slather it all on. And I went ahead and fitted my rear spoiler end, and it looks like it's gonna fit really good. So we're good there. So we're gonna go ahead and mix up some primer filler and just put a whole bunch of layers on there. And then of course we'll have to block it again. I've been using 80 grit. We'll go down to like 220 and then 320 and then 400 and get it really smoothed out. So we're gonna go ahead and get our primer on. Okay, I got about 3 coats on here, and this seemed to fill in pretty good here. I'm sure there's still a little bit of defects. I ran out of primer, so I'm gonna have to get some more and put 2 or 3 more coats on. And back here I got some humongous runs, so I've got to let that cure, but that's okay. It's got plenty of hardener in it, and it's gonna need a few more coats. There's some defects that are showing through, but it's getting late in the week and it is time to edit and upload. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here, and next time around we'll continue on with this bodywork until we get it all done. And we appreciate y'all watching.